I woke up on my 28th birthday to the sound of my front door slamming. At first, I thought it was my cat, Luna, brushing against the old wooden frame in her daily dawn wanderings. But then came the low rumble of voices, raised, angry voices, echoing through the thin walls of my apartment. I threw off the covers, heart pounding, and peered out the bedroom door into the hallway. My landlord, Mrs. Grayson, a formidable widow with a taste for floral dresses and stern reprimands, stood at the entrance of my living room. Opposite her, my older brother, Devin, glared at me, arms crossed over his tailored blazer. Behind him were my sister-in-law, Monique, and my cousin Felix, each looking uncomfortable, like actors waiting for the director's cue to deliver bad news. "Good morning," Mrs. Grayson said primly, voice trembling with indignation. "I believe you know why we're here." I blinked, rubbing sleep from my eyes. "Why are you in my apartment?" "It's my birthday." Devin stepped forward, chest puffed out. "We've talked about this, Elena. You can't stay here anymore." My stomach dropped. "What are you talking about?" Monique folded her arms, a practiced sneer on her lips. "Your lease is up, and you haven't signed the renewal." I opened my mouth, then closed it. The renewal form was sitting on my desk, half filled, waiting for my initials. I'd been so preoccupied with my promotion at the museum and planning my birthday dinner that I'd put it aside. Mrs. Grayson's voice cut in. "I gave her a week's notice," she said, pointing at me. "She had until yesterday." But I started stepping forward. "I was going to." Devin held up a hand. "It's done. You have until the end of the day to get your things out." My pulse hammered. End of the day. He nodded, head tilted. "Consider it an early gift." "You're evicting me on my birthday?" My voice cracked. I felt tears prick the corners of my eyes. That's cruel." "Cruel," Monique exclaimed. "Let's not pretend you haven't been freeloading off us for years. Mom and Dad, they want their property back." She snapped a glance at Devin, as if she'd outed me for some terrible crime. I stared at them in disbelief. "You think I'm freeloading? I moved in here when you two got married and inherited this apartment. I've paid my share. I have bank statements." She rolled her eyes. "We've sorted the finances. You're out." Mrs. Grayson cleared her throat. "I'm sorry, dear, but you must respect the law." I backed away, voice low and furious. "Fine, I'll leave, but don't you dare throw my things on the sidewalk." Devin smirked. "If you leave them, that's exactly what'll happen." With that, they turned and walked out. Mrs. Grayson clicked the door locked behind her. I leaned against the door, chest heaving, blinking back tears of rage and hurt. My bare feet felt cold against the hardwood floor. The apartment we'd grown up in was mine for the past 5 years. The kitchen where I'd learned to bake sourdough baguettes, the living room where I'd hosted every holiday dinner, the bedroom where sketches and journals overflowed from shelves. And now it was stripped from me on my birthday, by my own blood. I sank onto the sofa, staring at the blank walls. For a long moment, nothing moved. Then I felt something harden in my gut. This wasn't how my story would end. They could kick me out, but they would not steal my life. The city outside my window was waking up, honking taxis, the hum of early commuters, the scent of freshly brewed coffee drifting from the corner cafe. I grabbed my phone and dialed my best friend, Mara, who'd planned to surprise me with breakfast. Her voicemail picked up. I left a terse message. "They kicked me out. Need you." Now I threw on jeans, forced my feet into sneakers, and dashed out the door, locking it behind me. The hallway felt emptier than ever, as if the ghost of my life lingered in the dusty corners. I fled down the stairs, skipping a flight, and burst into the street. Mara was waiting outside the cafe, with a toe coffee and a blueberry muffin. She jumped when she saw me barreling toward her. "Alina," she cried, arms outstretched. "Happy birthday. Aren't you late?" I grabbed the coffee and muffin, unmindful of her confusion. "I've been evicted." Her mouth dropped open. "What? Who would do that?" I skidded onto the sidewalk, voice low but fierce. "My brother, my sister-in-law, and my cousin. They kicked me out. On my birthday." She blanched. "That's insane. Do you have anywhere to go?" I shook my head, tears threatening to spill. "Not anymore." Mara set her coffee on the cafe's outdoor table and threw her arms around me. "You can stay with me. Hell, you can move in with me until we figure this out." I hugged her, relief and shame mingling. "Thank you." She stepped back. "Come to my apartment. We'll strategize." We spent the next hour at her place, a cozy plant-filled loft, brainstorming. Mara pulled out her laptop. First, we need to know exactly what they own this apartment, the furniture, the utilities. Second, what do you own outright? Car, bank accounts, artwork? I listed off my 2018 sedan parked in the building's garage, savings account, inheritance ring from grandma, original paintings on the walls. My laptop, a storage unit in Queens with family photo albums, that old mahogany desk Dad built for me. She nodded. Okay. Third, what can they legally take? I bit my lip. They can't take my car if I own it. They can't touch my savings. They can't break into my storage unit because I pay for it. But everything inside this apartment, that's up for grabs. Mara's eyes hardened. Then we reclaim it. We're going to go get everything they stole. And the first step is documenting. Take photos of your place, right now. Furniture, electronics, the works. I grabbed my phone and raced back to my empty apartment. The floors were littered with a few stray books and a half-empty bottle of olive oil. I snapped pictures. My velvet armchair, the framed watercolor of our hometown I'd painted. The rug Monique had gifted me. The stereo system that had played my late-night nice hikes. Back at Mara's, we uploaded the photos to a shared folder labeled Operation Birthday Takeback. We drafted an email to Mrs. Grayson, politely requesting that none of my belongings be removed pending resolution. According to tenancy law, she had to preserve my property for a certain period. I hit send and exhaled. Now, Mara said, pulling a stack of notebooks toward us, we need to figure out how to get access to those apartments. Devon's place, Monique's condo for their weekend visits, wherever they stashed your stuff. I jotted down possible locations. Devon's brownstone in Park Slope, Monique's in Astoria, Felix's storage locker in Brooklyn. Mara tapped her pen. We'll need disguises. An Uber doesn't make sense. You'll stick out. We need to be inconspicuous. I felt a thrill of adrenaline. You're suggesting a heist. She grinned. Exactly. Over the next 2 days, Mara and I orchestrated our heist. We researched security systems, scoped out building layouts, and compiled a list of contactless pickup points. We enlisted Liam, another friend who owed me a favor. He was an IT whiz and could disable cameras temporarily. On Friday night, disguised in dark hoodies and baseball caps, we rolled up to Devon's brownstone on a bike. Liam followed in his van with a jerry can of jumper cables and a portable DVR jammer. Monique stood on the stoop, finishing a phone call when we arrived. I swallowed, heart pounding. Liam, now, I whispered. He pressed a button. The street-level camera feed went dark. I slipped the door key. I'd copied years ago when Devon let me house it, and walked into the dark hallway. The front door clicked open, and I slipped inside, Mara on my heels. The place smelled of sandalwood incense and Monique's signature jasmine candles. I shoved her a flashlight. Help me look for the living room key. She nodded, sweeping the beam over the walls. I pulled out my phone's camera and lit up the family portraits. It felt surreal, those same pictures that adorned my apartment, now looking foreign in this posh foyer. We crept to the kitchen door. I jiggled the handle. It was locked. Mara grinned and produced a bump key. I'd pilfered from my aunt's key ring last Christmas. Within seconds, the lock clicked. Inside the living room, my velvet armchair, center stage before, sat empty, replaced by a generic IKEA number. Mara tapped on the glass of my old watercolor. It's not here, my throat tightened. But my desk was in the corner. We searched through shelves and drawers, empty of my books, my journals, my grandmother's crocheted throw. My blood ran cold. They'd cleared it out already. I don't understand, I whispered. They hadn't taken the stash from here. Mara slid a hand onto my arm. Let's not panic. Maybe they moved it further back, or to the basement storage. Check the master bedroom. I led the way upstairs. Devon's bedroom was a Spartan sanctuary. Neutral walls, minimalist furniture. My monogrammed duffel bag sat on the bed, the dust covers peeled back. I lunged for it. It's empty, I said, voice hollow. Mara opened the closet. Nothing. Drawers empty. I sank against the wall. They jettisoned it. She crouched beside me. Or they moved it somewhere else, somewhere none of us think to look. Where else do they go? The storage unit? I nodded numbly. Felix's locker in Brooklyn. She stood. Then that's our next stop. The storage facility was a nondescript block complex by the Gowanus Canal. Flickering fluorescent lights cast long shadows as we wheeled Mia's wheelchair. My emergency unexpected wheelchair user ruse through the corridors. Liam had called ahead, claiming I needed to retrieve medical equipment. The clerk buzzed us in without suspicion. We found Unit 312, Felix's domain, rows of dusty boxes, old bike frames, broken lamps. I propped my forearm on the door, bracing myself. Mara slid the lock pick out and got to work. Inside, the dim interior revealed stacked boxes labeled in Felix's sprawling handwriting. Elena Art, Elena Papers, Elena Misk. I swallowed hard. They moved it here. I grabbed a box labeled Elena Art and ripped open the tape. A wave of relief and betrayal crashed over me. There was my mahogany desk, intact, and dozens of canvases wrapped in plastic. I lifted a painting, my rendition of the Brooklyn Bridge at dawn, and folded it against my chest. Tears sprung to my eyes. They kept it all. I wrenched open the next box. Journals, sketchbooks, the inherited ring in its velvet box still nestled in tissue paper. I jammed them into my duffel bag, heart racing. Mara retrieved a stack of my bank statements and apartment keys. They even took your old key, she whispered. I packed frantically, then grabbed Felix's duffel, rifled through it, and found my mother's heirloom scarf, my own scarf, handed down when I was 10. I wrapped it around my neck, a silent reclamation. Let's go, I said, voice firm. We wheeled the items out, stowing them in Liam's van. He slid back the DVR jammer. The cameras would reboot in minutes. We hightailed it back to Mara's loft, triumphant. That night, back in the safety of Mara's apartment, I spread my recovered treasures across the coffee table. My desk, the paintings, the journals, the ring, the scarf. Each item carried a story, late-night sketches, tear-stained pages, memories I had thought lost forever. I caressed the oil painting's wet brushstrokes, inhaled the musky scent of old paper, and felt my identity solidify. Mara poured us each a glass of wine. You did it, she said, clinking her glass against mine. I smiled through tears. They thought they could erase me by stealing my home, but they couldn't erase who I am. She set her glass down. Now what about the rest? Your car, your savings, your bank accounts. I took a steadying breath. We'll address those tomorrow. Tonight, I celebrate what I've reclaimed. Her lips curved into a proud grin. To reclaiming everything they stole. I raised my glass. To reclaiming my life. And as the city lights shimmered through the windows, I realized that this birthday, the one they'd tried to ruin, had become the catalyst for the fiercest, most fearless chapter of my story. That night, as I lay in Mara's guest bed, wrapped in my grandmother's heirloom scarf, I felt the tremor of adrenaline finally subside. I traced the scalloped edge of the scarf with my fingertips, letting the memory of home settle around me. Tomorrow, I thought, I would take back everything else they stole, my car, my savings, my peace of mind. But for now, I drifted into a dreamless sleep, soothed by the knowledge that I'd reclaimed the core of who I was. Morning brings strategy. I woke to sunlight slanting through the loft's big windows and the low hum of Mara stirring coffee in the kitchen. Luna, my cat, who I'd smuggled out in Mara's canvas tote the night before, purred at the foot of the bed. I smiled at her, fingers brushing her soft fur. She stretched luxuriously, then trotted toward the kitchen. 15 minutes later, over mugs of black coffee and leftover blueberry muffins, Mara laid out our agenda on her whiteboard. Secure my car, change garage code, and retrieve the keys from my brother's fiancé, who still had a spare. Protect my bank accounts, notify the bank of potential fraud, freeze the joint account until investigation concludes. Notify legal counsel, draft a cease and desist letter to Devin and Monique, demanding return of any withheld property and damages. Confront Felix. I needed answers. Why had he stored my things? Had he known? Reclaim emotional ground. Plan a homecoming dinner at my new apartment, inviting friends and select family to re-establish my territory. I nodded, energized. Let's go. Securing the car, my sedan, Rosie, was parked in the apartment building's underground garage, accessed by a keypad code that Devin still controlled. I texted him, need to update the code today. Please send me the new one. He didn't reply. A bluff, of course. If I didn't get the code, I'd need to retrieve the key from Monique. At noon, I met Monique at a busy cafe down the block. I wore a power move blazer, comfortable jeans, and Lily Allen's new single in my earbuds. When she slid into the seat across from me, she looked flustered, lipstick smudged, hair frizzy. Hey, I said, voice neutral, thanks for meeting. She fiddled with her latte. What's this about? Rosie's locked in the garage. I don't have the code. I need the spare key you've had since last year. Monique's cheeks flushed. I thought Devin gave you a new one. He didn't. Can you hand it over? I met her eyes directly. She sighed, glancing around the cafe. Fine. She reached into her purse and produced a small key fob. Here. I slid it into my pocket. Thank you. She watched me pack it away. You know, you could have just asked. I smiled tightly. I did. She frowned, then whipped out her phone. Work emergency. She stood. Enjoy your car. And she fled. I let out a breath and texted Mara. Operation Car. Success. Banking and legal. Next stop was my bank branch. I sat with my account manager, Miss Patel, a kindly woman with horn-rimmed glasses who'd known me since college. I explained the situation, my brother's family dispute, potential misappropriation of funds. She nodded, took notes, and within 20 minutes, we'd frozen my checking and savings accounts. They issued me temporary debit cards tied to new account numbers. Any attempt to clear the old accounts would trigger alerts. Take these documents, she said, handing me forms to fill out. Once your legal team is involved, we'll unlock funds as needed for your relocation. Relief flooded me. I thanked her and stepped outside, greening with renewed hope. Legal counsel and cease and desist. That afternoon, I met with Naomi Kirk, a lawyer who specialized in tenant and family property disputes. Her office, rich mahogany shelves, a single succulent in the corner, felt both imposing and safe. I've reviewed your evidence, Naomi said, flicking through the binder. I brought lease agreements, eviction notices, email correspondence with Mrs. Grayson, and the photos from my apartment. We'll draft a cease and desist letter demanding immediate return of all your personal property, still held by Devin and Monique. We can include a claim for damages, statutory penalties for wrongful eviction, plus compensation for emotional distress. I exhaled. That's exactly what I want. Naomi tapped her pen. The letter will go out tomorrow. Usually you give them a 5-day window to comply. If they don't, we'll file in civil court. Meanwhile, keep all evidence, including text messages and witness statements from me, Mara, and Liam. I nodded, bracing for the next round. The Felix question late afternoon found me and Mara at the entrance to Felix's storage unit, number 312, the scene of my nighttime reclamation. Felix stood by his car, nervously brushing his dark hair. He greeted us with forced cheer. Elena, he said, voice tentative. Thanks for picking up your stuff. I folded my arms. Why did you move it here? Were you helping Monique and Devin, or did you think I'd abandoned it? He sighed, gaze on the ground. I really did think you were moving out. Devin told me the lease was over. They said they'd bring the contents to a new place. He ran a hand through his hair. They never told me it was your stuff. I thought it was leftover old junk. I felt anger boil, but also relief. You never asked, or noticed the painting signed Elena M. Sanchez. He winced. I was busy. Moving apartments, a new job, everything. I'm sorry. I took a breath. I want a formal apology, Felix, and I want you to tell them you didn't intend to steal my things, but you will testify if this goes to court. He nodded vigorously. Of course. I'll do whatever you need. I exhaled. Thank you. I added, softer. I'm glad it wasn't just you. I wanted to hear it from you. He managed a small smile. I'm glad you got your stuff back. The cease and desist lands 2 mornings later. A courier delivered a crisp envelope to Devin's brownstone and Monique's condo. By mid-afternoon, I received a screenshot from them. The letterhead of Naomi Kirk, the bold subject, immediate recovery of wrongfully withheld personal property and damages. I sipped my tea as I watched Monique texting furiously. By 6 p.m., my phone buzzed. Devin, let's talk. We don't want court. Monique, call me tomorrow. I exhaled, the weight lifting. They knew I was serious. The homecoming dinner that weekend. I opened the doors to my new apartment, a modest 2-bedroom in a converted townhouse. I'd painted the living room a warm sage, hung my recovered paintings, and placed my mahogany desk by a sunny window. Luna prowled beneath the table, exploring her reclaimed domain. I set the table for 12. Mara and Liam, Naomi, Miss Patel from the bank, neighbors who'd lent a hand, and tentatively, Devin, Monique, and Felix. I wrote on my invitation, No drama, just food, wine, and a fresh start. At 7 p.m., Mara greeted guests at the door. Liam manned the playlist, soft jazz blending with the clink of glasses. Naomi sat on the sofa, telling Miss Patel about our progress. Miss Patel sipped sparkling water, proud to see her protections in action. When the doorbell rang again, my heart thudded. I smoothed my skirt and opened it to Devin and Monique. They stepped inside, eyes on my walls. Devin cleared his throat. Ully began, voice cautious. Thank you for inviting us. He glanced at Monique. We didn't want a court battle. Monique nodded, cheeks flushed. I'm sorry, Elena. This was never about you. I held up a hand. Let's start fresh. I stepped back to let them in. They found seats. Felix sat beside them, looking nervous but hopeful. I raised my glass. To new beginnings, I said, voice steady. To reclaiming what's ours, property, trust, and family. Glasses chimed. Devin offered me a small smile. Monique's eyes glistened. Felix gave me a thumbs up under the table. An unexpected twist, just as we settled into the roast chicken and garlic, roasted potatoes, Naomi's phone buzzed. She glanced at the screen, brow furrowing. I'm sorry, she said quietly. I have to read this. She stepped aside and opened the email. I returned my focus to Devin and Monique. Devin tugged at his collar. We've arranged reimbursement for all your moving expenses, and an extra 20% to cover any inconvenience, he said. We've wired it to your new account. A surge of vindication warmed me. Thank you. I reached into my purse and pulled out the small velvet box containing Grandma's ring. I want you both to have something back, too. I placed the ring on the table between them. Devin and Monique looked surprised. It's Grandma's ring, I explained. I inherited it. Mom gave it to me for my 25th birthday. But family heirlooms belong in the family. Monique took it, voice soft. Thank you. I don't deserve this. I met her eyes. You deserve a second chance. Before any more could be said, Naomi returned, her face pale. Elena, I'm so sorry. I set down my fork. What is it? She exhaled. It's Mrs. Grayson, your landlord. She's been arrested. Silence fell. Miss Patel gasped. Mara's fork clattered on her plate. Arrested? I whispered. Naomi nodded. The company's audit uncovered a pattern of landlord misconduct, illegal eviction practices, falsified notices. They flagged her practices, and she was taken in for questioning. She won't be able to evict you, or anyone else, ever again. A stunned joy rose in my chest. It wasn't entirely my victory. Too many other tenants had suffered, but it felt like cosmic justice. Luna meowed, as if to celebrate. I looked around the table, friends who'd stood by me, family who'd risked shame to make amends, and I realized my take-back had grown into something greater. A reclamation not just of possessions, but of dignity, trust, and integrity. Epilogue. A full circle months later, as winter thawed into early spring, I sat at my restored desk, sketching the Brooklyn Bridge again, this time bathed in cherry blossom pink. Luna curled at my feet. The mahogany surface was polished, my journals stacked neatly to the side. Devin and Monique stopped by every so often, once for coffee, then for wine, then just to catch up. Felix dropped off a photo album he'd found in the storage unit, pictures of our grandparents and childhood holidays. I added them to my shelf, alongside the new heirlooms I'd acquired. Resilience, independence, and the knowledge that I could rebuild anything. That afternoon, my phone buzzed. Congratulations. Your proposal has been approved. Museum exhibit, home and belonging. I smiled, texting back. Thank you. Ready to reclaim more stories. I traced a finger over my sketch, inhaling the scent of wood and ink. My birthday ordeal had nearly broken me, but instead it forged me stronger. They kicked me out, but I took back everything they stole. My art, my home, my voice, and most importantly, my sense of self. And in that reclamation, I discovered that home isn't just a place, it's wherever you stand firm, surrounded by people who believe in you, and a heart that won't be stolen.